the most invulnerable new God, the most invulnerable new gods, a most invulnerable new God, the most invulnerable new goddess, the most invulnerable new goddesses, a most invulnerable new goddess, the most invulnerable old God, the most invulnerable old gods, a most invulnerable old God, the most invulnerable old goddess, the most invulnerable old goddesses, a most invulnerable old goddess, the most invulnerable greater God, the most invulnerable greater gods, a most invulnerable greater God, the most invulnerable greater goddess, the most invulnerable greater goddesses, a most invulnerable greater goddess, the most invulnerable lesser God, the most invulnerable lesser gods, a most invulnerable lesser God, the most invulnerable lesser goddess, the most invulnerable lesser goddesses, a most invulnerable lesser goddess, the most invulnerable greater spirit, the most invulnerable greater spirits, a most invulnerable greater spirit, the most invulnerable lesser spirit, the most invulnerable lesser spirits, a most invulnerable lesser spirit, the most invulnerable major God, the most invulnerable major gods, a most invulnerable major God, the most invulnerable major goddess, the most invulnerable major goddesses, a most invulnerable major goddess, the most invulnerable minor God, the most invulnerable minor gods, a most invulnerable minor God, the most invulnerable minor goddess, the most invulnerable minor goddesses, a most invulnerable minor goddess, the most invulnerable superior God, the most invulnerable superior gods, a most invulnerable superior God, the most invulnerable superior goddess, the most invulnerable superior goddesses, a most invulnerable superior goddess, the most invulnerable inferior God, the most invulnerable inferior gods, a most invulnerable inferior God, the most invulnerable inferior goddess, the most invulnerable inferior goddesses, a most invulnerable inferior goddess, the most invulnerable ancestor God, the most invulnerable ancestor gods, a most invulnerable ancestor God, the most invulnerable ancestor goddess, the most invulnerable ancestor goddesses, a most invulnerable ancestor goddess, the most invulnerable ascendant God, the most invulnerable ascendant gods, a most invulnerable ascendant God, the most invulnerable ascendant goddess, the most invulnerable ascendant goddesses, a most invulnerable ascendant goddess, the most invulnerable descendant God, the most invulnerable descendant gods, a most invulnerable descendant God, the most invulnerable descendant goddess, the most invulnerable descendant goddesses, a most invulnerable descendant goddess, the most invulnerable transcendent God, the most invulnerable transcendent gods, a most invulnerable transcendent God, the most invulnerable transcendent goddess, the most invulnerable transcendent goddesses, a most invulnerable transcendent goddess, the most invulnerable future God, the most invulnerable future gods, a most invulnerable future God, the most invulnerable future goddess, the most invulnerable future goddesses, a most invulnerable future goddess, the most invulnerable present God, the most invulnerable present gods, a most invulnerable present God, the most invulnerable present goddess, the most invulnerable present goddesses, a most invulnerable present goddess, the most invulnerable past God, the most invulnerable past gods, a most invulnerable past God, the most invulnerable past goddess, the most invulnerable past goddesses, a most invulnerable past goddess, the most invulnerable God, the most invulnerable gods, a most invulnerable God, the most invulnerable goddess, the most invulnerable goddesses, a most invulnerable goddess, the most invulnerable half-god, the most invulnerable half-gods, a most invulnerable half-god, the most invulnerable half-goddess, the most invulnerable half-goddesses, a most invulnerable half-goddess, the most invulnerable vessel, the most invulnerable vessels, a most invulnerable vessel, the most invulnerable person, the most invulnerable persons, a most invulnerable person, the most invulnerable image, the most invulnerable images, a most invulnerable image, the most invulnerable belief, the most invulnerable beliefs, a most invulnerable belief, the most invulnerable thought, the most invulnerable thoughts, a most invulnerable thought, the most invulnerable word, the most invulnerable words, a most invulnerable word, the most invulnerable action, the most invulnerable actions, a most invulnerable action, the most invulnerable situation, the most invulnerable situations, a most invulnerable situation, the most invulnerable circumstance, the most invulnerable circumstances, a most invulnerable circumstance, the most invulnerable relationship, the most invulnerable relationships, a most invulnerable relationship, the most invulnerable number, the most invulnerable numbers, a most invulnerable number, the most invulnerable formula, the most invulnerable formulas, a most invulnerable formula, the most invulnerable symbol, the most invulnerable symbols, a most invulnerable symbol, the most invulnerable color, the most invulnerable colors, a most invulnerable color, the most invulnerable thing, the most invulnerable things, a most invulnerable thing, the most invulnerable way, the most invulnerable ways, a most invulnerable way, the most invulnerable place, the most invulnerable places, a most invulnerable place, the most invulnerable time, the most invulnerable times, a most invulnerable time, the most invulnerable event, the most invulnerable events, a most invulnerable event, the most invulnerable result, the most invulnerable results, a most invulnerable result,